10. Renault 4. Few cars have managed to translate the spirit of practicality and accessibility as well as the Renault 4. Launched in the early 1960s, in a Europe still reeling from the traumas of war, the model emerged as a direct response to people's real needs. A simple, reliable, versatile, and inexpensive vehicle. It was an attempt to democratize personal transport on a continent that was beginning to see mobility as a right, not a luxury. And the Renault 4, with its modest looks and robust mechanics, knew how to fill this space perfectly. Its design was not intended to impress. With straight lines, 4 doors, and a square rear, it prioritized interior space and functionality. The high suspension and front-wheel drive allowed it to travel with ease on both narrow city streets and dirt roads in the countryside. And behind its simplicity, there was a discreet ingenuity. The removable rear seat, for example, transformed the car into an improvised utility vehicle, ready to carry cargo, tools, or even be used for small removals. It was the ideal car for the farmer, the letter carrier, the student, and the middle-class family seeking independence. Over more than 3 decades of production, the Renault 4 has been manufactured in more than 100 countries and sold an impressive 8 million units. It became a symbol of affordable mobility, especially in countries in Europe, Latin America, and Africa, where its resilience and cheap maintenance made it an almost obvious choice. It was not uncommon to see a Renault 4 on the road after decades of intense use, adapted, refurbished, but always on the move, fulfilling its mission with dignity. And it is this quiet dignity that marks the beginning of our journey through the most iconic European cars. Because even among super machines and stunning designs, there is something deeply symbolic about a car that, without claiming to be extraordinary, ended up marking the lives of millions. And if the Renault 4 represents the people in their most practical form, the next model reveals how an obsession with performance can transform a brand and revolutionize the way we drive. 9. Audi Quattro. If the Renault 4 showed that simplicity can move the world, the Audi Quattro proved that innovation can completely redefine the rules of the game. At a time when most sports cars relied solely on rear-wheel drive, Audi dared to go further by introducing a permanent all-wheel drive system in a sports coupe. The result wasn't just a technical breakthrough, it was a revolution. Introduced in the early 1980s, the Quattro defied convention with a radical proposal to unite performance, control, and safety in a package that was elegant, robust, and surprisingly effective on any terrain. Its most notable impact was in the world of rallying. While competitors skidded on gravel, mud, or snow, the Audi Quattro kept its composure and accelerated without losing traction. Quattro traction, as it came to be known, gave the brand an immediate competitive advantage, translated into titles and glory in the World Rally Championship. But more than trophies, what the Quattro offered was a new way of thinking about automotive performance. It showed that power without control is nothing, and that the right technology can turn even the most adverse conditions into performance allies. Aesthetically, the Quattro didn't try to show off. Its lines were firm, almost discreet, but they carried a quiet confidence. The long hood, robust bodywork, and subtle spoiler made up a look that combined sportiness with sobriety, true to German elegance. And underneath this restrained design was a turbocharged engine that, together with the all-wheel drive, provided a visceral and precise driving experience. It was a car that didn't just go fast. It made you feel in absolute control, even in borderline situations. But the Audi Quattro's legacy was not restricted to the racetrack. It influenced a whole generation of street cars, showing that safety and performance can coexist. What's more, It set a new standard within the brand itself, making the name Quattro synonymous with quality and innovation. From then on, Audi ceased to be just another German car maker and became a benchmark in cutting-edge engineering. And so, while the Renault 4 showed that everyone can move, the Quattro taught us that the way we move can be reinvented. Now we move on to a car that united beauty and daring like few others, taking the concept of automotive design to a new level, and which, even today, is seen by many as the most beautiful of all time. 08 Mercedes-Benz 300 SL Seagull Wing. With the advance of engineering and the post-war industrial renaissance, Europe saw the birth of cars that not only transported people, but also embodied the spirit of a new era. The Mercedes-Benz 300 SL was one of those milestones. Launched in 1954, it wasn't just an elite sports car, it was a declaration that Germany was back at the top of automotive innovation. Its futuristic look, marked by gull-wing doors, immediately set it apart from everything else on the streets. It was as if a car had been taken out of a dream and placed on the asphalt. But the 300 SL didn't just impress with its looks. It was the first production car to use direct fuel injection, an advanced technology for the time that increased the engine's power and efficiency. Capable of reaching speeds of over 160 miles per hour, it was a sleek rocket, a sports car that could be used both on the track and on the road in surprising comfort. It was a rare balance between raw performance and refined sophistication, something that few brands have managed to replicate with such precision. Its limited production and high cost made it a privilege for the few, but its impact went far beyond the number of units sold. The 300 SL became a symbol of status, cutting-edge engineering, and visionary design. Even today, it is one of the most valued and coveted classic cars in the world. Looking at its clean shapes and precise mechanics, we understand that true luxury lies not in excess but in excellence. And it is this excellence that connects the past with the future, paving the way for a next model that has taken the term beauty on wheels to a new meaning. 07 Jaguar E-Type. If there is one car that has managed to capture the essence of automotive beauty in its purest form, it is the Jaguar E-Type. Launched in 1961, it not only became an aesthetic benchmark, but also redefined what the world expected from a sports car. Its long, low, and aerodynamic lines made an immediate impact. It was a car that didn't need to move to convey speed. One look, and you knew there was something special about it. No wonder Enzo Ferrari, one of the most demanding names in motorsport history, declared the E-Type the most beautiful car ever made. Behind the striking appearance was an equally impressive mechanical package. Equipped with powerful engines and a modern suspension, the E-Type offered performance comparable to the supersports cars of the time, but at a fraction of the price. It delivered strong acceleration, sharp handling, and a driving experience that combined comfort with adrenaline. It was a car that could tackle German autobahns or the curves of British roads with equal aplomb. And it did so with an almost aristocratic elegance. But what perhaps made the E-Type so special was its ability to be sophisticated without being unattainable. It attracted movie stars, musicians, artists, and design lovers. Parked in front of a house or paraded through the streets, the E-Type was more than a car. It was a living work of art. Even today, it is a constant presence on lists of the most beautiful cars in history, and each preserved example carries with it a piece of the era in which style and performance went hand in hand. And it is precisely at this crossroads between performance and innovation that we find the next European icon. If the E-Type charmed with its features and class, the next car made history by inaugurating a new category, supercars. And it did so with a mid-engine breathtaking design and a brand name that is still synonymous with desire, Lamborghini. '06 Lamborghini Miura. At the end of the 1960s, the automotive world was rocked by a daredevil from Italy, the Lamborghini Miura. At a time when the most powerful cars kept the engine at the front, the Miura broke paradigms by adopting a V12 engine mounted in the center of the chassis, a position until then reserved for racing cars. This gesture wasn't just technical, it was symbolic. It represented a turning of the page, a break with the conventional. The Miura didn't just want to race, it wanted to seduce, impact, and set a new standard for what was understood as a sports car. Its design was an aesthetic provocation. With flowing curves, retractable headlights, and a sculptural rear, the Miura seemed sculpted for the streets, but with a track soul. Designed by Marcello Gandini, its look caused astonishment and admiration wherever it went. It looked fast, even standing still, like a feline about to leap. Every detail expressed movement, freedom, and Italian arrogance, not as a defect, but as an affirmation of identity. It was impossible to ignore, and that's exactly what Lamborghini wanted, to create something so extreme that it would force the world to look. On the road, the Miura was wild. With over 350 horsepower, it offered a visceral, almost indomitable experience. Driving it demanded attention, but was rewarded with emotion. There were no filters, no electronics to correct mistakes. It was the driver, the car, and the road. This raw, direct connection set a new standard for involvement behind the wheel and inspired generations of supersports cars to come. Ferrari, Porsche, McLaren, they all had to look at the Miura and recognize there was a new king on the track. But the Miura wasn't just about speed and vanity. It represented a philosophy, the idea that a car can be an expression of art, power, and rebellion at the same time. A functional sculpture, made to be admired, but also challenged. And if the Miura put Lamborghini on the map with a roar, the next car showed that technology and comfort could go hand in hand with the future. A car that seemed to have come from outer space and which, with its unique suspension, took the driving experience to another level. 05 Citroën DS. In 1955, while the world still saw cars as simple transportation tools, Citroën presented something that seemed to come from the future. The DS wasn't just a car, it was an aesthetic and technological statement. Its aerodynamic lines, inspired by airplanes and futuristic concepts, broke with the conservatism of the time. Long, low, with recessed headlights and gentle curves, the DS seemed to glide through time rather than just drive along. And inside, the surprise continued. A single-spoke steering wheel, a wraparound dashboard, and a spacious, comfortable cabin completed an experience that was more reminiscent of a spaceship than a conventional vehicle. But what really made the DS a legend was its hydropneumatic suspension, which automatically adjusted the height of the car according to the terrain. This technology allowed for a level of comfort never experienced before, making the DS almost immune to road imperfections. Driving this car was like floating, a smoothness that impressed not only ordinary drivers, but also politicians, artists, and heads of state. The intelligent suspension, combined with power steering and disc brakes at a time when these were still rare, positioned the DS as an evolutionary leap in terms of automotive engineering. The impact was immediate. At the Paris Motor Show where it was unveiled, the model received more than 12,000 orders in the first 24 hours. Over the years, it became the official car of French presidents and gained the status of a national symbol. But its prestige wasn't just institutional. On the streets, the DS became an object of desire, redefining what was expected of a luxury car. It was more than a comfortable vehicle. It was a sensory experience, something between the sublime and the functional. If the Lamborghini Miura was boldness incarnate in a supercar, the DS showed that sophistication can be quiet, elegant, and deeply intelligent. A reminder that innovation doesn't shout, it imposes itself with class. And it is on this trail of sophistication and tradition that we find the next icon, a German sports car that has spanned the decades without ever losing its essence. A car that, since 1964, has been synonymous with a balance between form and performance, the Porsche 911. 04 Porsche 911. When it comes to continuity and tradition, few names carry as much weight as the Porsche 911. Since its launch in 1964, it has remained true to its essence, even after countless evolutions. Its unmistakable silhouette, with its round headlights and elongated rear, has become a visual signature recognized by any automotive enthusiast, whether beginner or veteran. And more than looks, the 911 represents a philosophy that performance and reliability can coexist harmoniously without sacrificing pleasure behind the wheel. Originally conceived as a replacement for the Porsche 356, the 911 retained the idea of the rear engine, an unconventional choice, but one that ended up becoming a defining characteristic of its personality. This configuration challenged balance, demanding mastery from the driver, but at the same time it created a unique connection between machine and driver, as if each corner required a constant conversation between the two. Over the decades, the car became more refined, more technological, but always preserved what made it special: the pure driving experience. It's no exaggeration to say that the 911 has evolved without ever surrendering. Instead of radically reinventing itself with each generation, it has been perfected with surgical precision, subtle changes, constant improvements, but always respecting its identity. This has created an extremely loyal fan base who see the 911 not just as a sports car, but as an extension of their own personality. And this consistency has made it a living legend, present on racetracks, in collectors' garages, and in the collective imagination of everyone who appreciates true German engineering. The Porsche 911 isn't just a fast car, it's an ongoing study in balance, tradition, and performance. And if it represents the pinnacle of constancy and refinement, the next car on our journey was the opposite. It was born small, unpretentious, but conquered the world with irreverence, style, and efficiency. A true icon of British culture that showed how size doesn't always matter, the Mini Cooper. 03 Mini Cooper Original. If the Porsche 911 showed the power of precision and consistency, the Mini Cooper proved that genius can fit into something small, light, and utterly charming. Created in the late 1950s by Alekis Agonis, the original Mini was not designed to impress on the racetrack or in luxury salons, but to solve a much more practical problem: affordable mobility in a Europe marked by a shortage of space and fuel. With its compact dimensions, front-wheel drive, and transverse engine, the Mini brought a revolutionary solution, redefining the concept of the city car. But what began as a functional project soon became a cultural phenomenon. Its friendly design, combined with agile handling, made the Mini much more than a small car. It was fun, expressive, and incredibly effective in corners, which caught the attention of drivers and preparers. This is how the Mini Cooper was born, a sports version prepared by John Cooper, who turned the little car into a giant on rally circuits. Almost absurdly, the Mini began to beat much more powerful models in competitions such as the Monte Carlo Rally, and the world watched in amazement and fascination. This contrast between modest size and aggressive performance became part of the Mini's personality. It represented the British spirit of the 1960s: bold, creative, irreverent. Icons such as the Beatles, Twiggy, and Steve McQueen were seen behind the wheel of a Mini, consolidating its image as a pop symbol. It was a car for everyone, but it didn't lose any of its style. It could fit in any parking space, but it could also fit in the pages of fashion magazines, on rock stages, and in the hearts of those looking for something different. And that's exactly why the Mini crossed generations. Its essence has lived on, even with the relaunches and reinterpretations over the years. Because deep down, the Mini taught us that what really matters is not the size of the car, but the size of the impact it makes. And now, leaving the narrow streets of England and heading for the fiery tracks of Italy, we find a model that has taken the Ferrari myth to its zenith. A car that was born as a celebration but became a legend. The F40. 02 Ferrari F40. If there is one car that symbolizes the pinnacle of automotive passion, it is the Ferrari F40. Presented in 1987 as a tribute to the brand's 40th anniversary, it was the last model approved by Enzo Ferrari before his death, and that alone would be enough to make it special. But the F40 went far beyond a tribute. It became the supercar par excellence, a machine that captured the raw essence of speed without compromise. At a time when electronics were beginning to soften the driving experience, the F40 went in the opposite direction, an analog car, fierce and brutal. Its design was functional and aggressive. Every curve, air intake, and rear wing was there for a reason: aerodynamic performance. The body, made of lightweight materials such as Kevlar and carbon fiber, hit a 478 horsepower biturbo V8 engine, capable of taking it to over 200 miles per hour. But numbers don't tell the whole story. What was really remarkable about driving an F40 was the feeling of taming a beast. No power steering, no traction controls, no luxury. Just the driver, the roar of the engine, and an immediate response to any movement, whether it was right or wrong. It was difficult, intimidating, even dangerous for the unwary. But for purists, that was its greatest virtue. It demanded respect, technique, and courage. It was made not to impress with comfort, but to thrill with truth. And perhaps that's why so many consider it Ferrari's last truly pure car. A vehicle that didn't try to hide anything, that didn't filter experience, and for that very reason, it became immortal. The F40 wasn't just a product of Italian engineering, it was an emotional work, a cry for mechanical freedom before the digital age took over for good. And in this contrast between the extreme and the essential, it opened a new chapter in the automotive imagination. But before we finish this journey through Europe's icons, there is still one that, despite all the advances and daring, remains the most recognizable and beloved by all. A symbol of simplicity and affection that has become part of the history of millions of people: the Volkswagen Beetle. One Volkswagen Beetle. Ending this journey with the Volkswagen Beetle is like going back to the origins of what makes a car truly iconic. Born in Germany in the 1930s as the people's car, the VW Beetle has survived wars, crises, and decades of cultural and social change. And more than that, it has reinvented itself in each country it has passed through, taking on different personalities, but always maintaining its essence. Small, sturdy, and affordable, it has earned a unique place in the history of mobility, being not just a means of transportation, but part of the lives of millions of people around the world. Its simple mechanics, with an air-cooled rear engine, made it a reliable and easy-to-maintain model. It was the perfect car for those who needed to get around without complications, and at the same time, a vehicle that allowed intimacy. Anyone who has owned a VW Beetle knows that it wasn't just a car, it was a companion. It was noisy, required patience when going uphill, but rarely let its owner down. It served as a cab, an ambulance, a family car, an object of personalization, and even an icon of cultural resistance in difficult times. In countries like Brazil and Mexico, it became a popular symbol almost as strong as the flag itself. Over the decades, the VW Beetle has resisted trends, survived time, and, paradoxically, never aged. Each generation has found in it a new form of expression. From the hippies of the 1960s to today's vintage car enthusiasts, it has always kept its charisma intact. It's hard to find another vehicle that arouses so much affection and so many memories. Perhaps because the VW Beetle represents more than freedom on wheels, it represents a simple, honest, and authentic way of life. And in an increasingly fast-paced and complex world, this simplicity becomes revolutionary. And so, among Italian supermachines, French works of art, and German precision, the VW Beetle ends this list not for being the fastest or the most luxurious, but for being the most human. A reminder that at the end of the day, what makes a car truly iconic is not just what it does, but what it means to those who have been behind the wheel.